I ride my bicycle to church most mornings. It's one of those little folding bikes and small wheels. And when the road tilts uphill, those little wheels suddenly feels very small. And sometimes I make a sound I would rather you not hear. And some of you have driven past me, and I appreciate that you have been Christian enough not to honk. But this time of year, there is a stretch of that ride where I go straight into the gray. It never rains, not once. And then I get to the office, take off my jacket, and my sleeves are damp. Sometimes wet all the way through. The strange thing is, I never feel it happen. There is no moment when I think, oh, there it is. Now I am wet. I could not tell you which block or which minutes. I just paddle and think about the day ahead and arrive wet. Santa Cruz does that to you. The fog comes over West Cliff and you never see it move. You just look up at some point and realize you cannot see the water anymore. Some of the things arrive without announcing in themselves. And the harder things arrive that way too. 3 churches became 1 church. And I think many of us carried a quiet hope that once we were together, the difficulties each of us had carried alone would somehow get smaller. They didn't. Nobody likes to say that out loud, but we know. There are seats in this room that are empty this morning. And many of those seats have names. There are leaders we still need. There is a project that we have worked on for almost 10 years. There are people we love and worry about. And I pray about all of it. I really do. And I bring it to God. And I lay down, God, this is something you can do. And then apparently I say, thank you, God. And then I'll take that back now. I gather the whole things up again and put it under my shoulder and walk away carrying it every single time. So I have been wondering, what if the things we are working so hard to build is not something we build at all? What if some of God's deepest work arrives more like a weather, quietly, on sleeves we did not know were bare? There is a psalm about that. 3 verses long. And listen what the psalm says. How very good and pleasant it is when kindred live together in unity. The first word in Hebrew is hine. Our Bible turns it into how very good, beautiful. But hine is doing something else. Hine is a finger. Look at. Charles Spurgeon said this is a wonder seldom seen, and that is exactly why the psalmist has to point. And notice where we are in this series. A few weeks ago, with Jacob at the river, The Word was behold the face. Look toward God. Now, on this last Sunday of this worship series, the psalm takes the same finger and turns it sideways. Look at the person next to you. Oh, don't stare. So that could become a whole different sermon. Now, two words in that verse, hine mato uma naim in Hebrew. The first is tov, good. That is a Genesis word, creation word. God saw the light and said it was a tov. It was good. Notice the light had not accomplished anything yet. It simply was. And God called its existence was good. Even before the light do anything. The second is naim, pleasant. And this is what surprised me. Naim is a music word. Music word. Psalm 147 says it is a tov. Tov is good to sing praise to God because a song of praise is a naim. Naim. So same pair, tov and naim. Good and pleasant. There about the singing. Here about the people living together. Which means a congregation simply gathered is already kind of a praise. Before a piano or mandolin, before the choir, before anybody opens a hymnal. It is like a precious oil on the head, running down upon the beard, on the beard of Aaron, running down over the collar of his robes. But stay with that. Aaron is standing there and the oil is put over his head. Not dabbed, not sprinkled, poured. It moves through his hair and down his face, into his beard. And then the psalm insists on saying it keeps going down to the collar of his robe. The man is dripping and he cannot control where it goes. Exodus tells us this oil was restricted. There was a recipe, myrrh and cinnamon and cassia, and a law not for the ordinary user, not for the ordinary people. One of the most carefully guarded substance in Israel. And when it is poured out, its whole behavior is to spread. Oil that never runs was never poured. We have a promise at our noodle cafe. One bowl for you, another for others. Someone pays for that second bowl and never learns who is it. But they come. One afternoon, while I was at in Noodle Cafe, and pastor's working desk, so now there is no signs of pastor's office. Just simply pastor's desk is one of the room. And a young man came in. He looked very tired and hungry. And he said, "Can I have a bowl of a noodle?" "Oh, sure, of course. So let me help you." So I made a bowl. Well, he seemed almost uncomfortable taking up the space indoor. He took his bowl outside and sat down and ate. And then he came back again when I was going to leave the office and saying, "There's another person who is hungry. Can I get a bowl for that person?" What should I say? you know what? They will know who paid that. The person who paid will never know who's going to take that. But something moved all the way down from one life into another. Friends, that's how it works. The moment we have to control every drop, it stops being oil and becomes inventory. It is like the dew of Hermon, which falls on the mountains of Zion. There is a geographical problem here. Because Mount Hermon is far north, 9,000 feet, and snow on the top. Zion is in low ridge, 120 miles south on the edge of the wilderness. The dew of Hermon does not fall on Zion. Not rarely, never. The psalmist knows that. He has walked that road, and he sings it anyway. Those of us who have stood at one end of a divided country know what it is to look toward the mountains you cannot walk to. Especially like this time. And here's what struck me most this week. Psalm 133 belongs to the Song of Ascent. Song of Ascent. These were not the song inside the temple. On the way to the temple, they sung this song. They were sung on the road by pilgrims still traveling, still climbing, still days out. Which means the people singing how good it is when kindred dwell together when not together yet. Last Sunday we said sing before you feel like singing. Praise does not wait for the condition. Here it is. People on the road singing about home before they get home. They are not describing their circumstances. They are singing beyond them. They walk. They sing. And somewhere along the way, they get wet. Some of you remember when the spring year school closed. 48 years of children in those rooms and facility and there. And then enrollment fell, the door closed. And naturally, and we wondered what happens to all this space and these rooms. What are we going to do? And then the Boys and Girls Clubs came. Different children and same room, same hallway. And once again, noise, beautiful noises, the kind that is wonderful when it belongs to children, and slightly less wonderful when you are trying to write to someone at the next door. But life was in that hallway again. And nobody stood outside and watched that arrive, and there was no dramatic moment. We just looked up one day and the sound had come back. Wet sleeves. And we never felt it again. There are people who belong to us who are not here this morning. Someone beside a hospital bed, someone and walking the last stretch of the road with a person they love. Someone whose body simply would not allow it today. And someone we stood in this room and blessed a few weeks ago and sent away I have been thinking about that one because blessing someone and then watching them live can feel strangely like a failures. Part of you want to say, no, unity means you stay. But that is not what the oil does. The oil leaves the head, it was put on. Whoever we bless walk out of this room wearing it, that oil. Now, I could stop there. And you might go home and thinking this sermon is about the people who are absent. It is not. It is not. Because if Psalm 133 is a song of the people who have not arrived, whose song is it this morning? Look at your own life. Is your family whole? Is your relationship healed? Is the person you have been praying for well yet? Is everything you have laid before God finished? None of us has arrived either. Every one of us is somewhere on that road, still walking, still climbing, still days out from somewhere. So, this is not a song we sing about the people who are missing. It is a song of all of us singing from different places on the same road to God. And the psalm calls that good, Tov. And then there is a second question, and this is the one I cannot get away from. If none of us has arrived, how did we get here? Because you did. You are here. Whatever kind of faith you brought this morning, strong faith, thin faith, borrowed faith, tired faith, or slightly irritated faith, you brought it. You brought those faith, and you did not get this far alone. Someone put something onto you. Someone fed you before you were old enough to remember. And someone stayed when living would have been easier. Someone taught you something you still use today. Someone spoke your name in prayer in a room you never entered. They did not carry you all the way. That was never their job. They just got you wet. And the psalm takes the credit away from us anyway, for the Lord ordained His blessing. The word is tshuva. God commanded the blessing, ordained it into being. Not us. We are not the supplier. Not of this church, not of the 10-year project, not of the people we hope will come, and not of the whatever you picked the backup the last time you told God you were laying it down. I think this is what I have been getting backward. When I see an empty chair, my first instinct is, how do you feel it? And that is not a pastor problem. We all know an empty chair. The one at the holiday table, at the passenger seat. We are far better at counting who is missing than at thanking who came into our lives. That is what praise is this morning. Not pretending nothing is missing, not saying everything is finished, not even feeling particularly joyful. Praise is a turning around while we are still on the road and naming what has already run down over us. So while we still can. Maybe years ago, there was a Sunday school teacher who taught you how to pray. She may not remember saying that, and she may have taught hundreds of children. She may not even be alive anymore, but 40 years later, you are sitting beside a hospital bed and you don't know what to pray, and suddenly those words came back, and you tell the truth. All those frustration, anxiety, and what you want. That's your prayer. She never knew that sentence traveled that far. You never noticed yourself carrying it that far into your life. But there it is, dew from another mountain, oil from another life, wet sleeves. Now, you don't have to turn around. Turn to yourself this time. So here's a question to ponder. Whose faithfulness are you still carrying that you have never thankful them for? Maybe they are still here. Maybe they are far away. Maybe you cannot thank them anymore. Just name them in your heart and mind. Friends, and maybe this way, if that person is still within reach, tell them. Not because they need the credit, but because praise sometimes means naming the oil while you can still see where it came from. When you walk out of here this morning, something will be on you. You probably will not have felt it arrive. You cannot name the block or the minutes or the moment. You just discover one day someone's kindness stayed in you. Someone's prayer stayed in your heart. Someone's faith stayed in your life. And somehow you are wet. That's what dew does. That's what God's grace does. That's what unity looks like while we are still on the road. Go in peace. Amen.